This is James Lutton for Round 8 Boxing. Delighted to be joined with John H Stracey. John, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, good.
Good stuff. John, let's take me back to the beginning a little bit. Give me your earliest
Yeah.
memory. Do you remember your first day in the gym?
My first day in the gym, very, very well. Yes, I do. It was a Repton, my very first one. I was 11 and about 4 months. So it would have been 1962, January, February. And I was 5 stone 9, 5 stone 9 pounds. I don't know what that is today in pounds or whatever, but it was 5 stone 9 then. And I went in. And the trainer at the Repton was a guy called Georgie Whiter, who was a real lovely guy. I mean, a real nice guy. And obviously, when you go in the gym, you've never been in before. My dad was with me, a little bit nervous, of course. And I walked in, and he first thing he said to me, "You all right, son?" Like that. I went, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." That's what we did, called everyone sir who was older than us. And he said, "You ever boxed before, son?" I said, "No, sir, no." Okay, he said, "Right, see that bag over there?" He said, "When he's finished on the bag, you go over, you start hitting the bag, and I'll come and see you." I went, "All right, sir," like that. I'm obviously nervous. And you're seeing all the kids doing their shadow boxing, skipping, exercises. It was so different to what I'd ever seen in my life. Anyway, I got on the bag, and I was a southpaw then, because I'm left-handed in everything I do. I play golf left-handed, I write left-handed. I'm totally left-handed, but I couldn't throw my right hand. I could just throw my left. So I was standing as southpaw, and he said, "What are you doing?" Because I was just throwing my left. He went, "What are you doing?" So I said, "Well, you said hit the bag. You don't hit it like that." I said, "Well, how'd you hit it?" He said, "You have to throw your right hand, then your left." I said, "I can't throw my right hand." He said, "Why?" I said, "I'm left-handed." He went, "All right, well, turn round." And I turned completely round circle, 360 degrees. And he must have thought, "What's it?" And he said, "No, no, no." And then he stood behind me, James, and then he put me to being orthodox, look this way. So I stood that way, and then he said, "Right, jab." So I'm going bang, bang, jab, then throw the right. Oh, I said, "I can do that." And so that's how I started off. I was actually a southpaw, and I do everything left-handed. I play golf left-handed, everything's left-handed. But I just couldn't fight as a southpaw. So, but I remember those days. And then the funny thing was, and this is how he got me. He said to me, "Right," he said, "I don't suppose I'll see you on Thursday," because this was on a Tuesday, because it was Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, the training. So I said, "No, I'll be there on Thursday." "Nah, no, you won't. You won't be there." I said, "I will." "You won't." I said, "Why?" He went, "They never come back. It's too hard for them." I said, "No, I'll be there." And on the Thursday, I was the very first one waiting to go in the gym. The very first, that's no lie. And so that's how I started. Yeah, and I just wanted to box, and simple as that.
What was the
So brilliant.
what was the reputation like of Repton? Obviously, now I look back and so many champions come out of there, trained by your Tony Burns, etc. The green and gold. You think
Yeah.
the vest as an amateur, you go, "Oh, Repton, they're gonna
Well,
be good."
I mean, when you look at Repton from when it first started, they've had every champion that there could ever be. I mean, they've had Olympic champions, uh, they've had world champions, British champions, European champions, ABA champions, every going right through boxing history. They've won everything, and I think for many many years they had an ABA champion for something like 70 or 80 years every year. So it was a phenomenal club. So, but funnily enough, I was only there for 2 years. Then I left, and I went to a club called St George's, because the one reason was there were so many kids there, and I didn't feel I was getting the proper looking after. And there was a guy called Jackie Chappell who ran the St George's, who my dad knew very well. And he said, "I'll fetch him over to our club like that." And so I did, and I swapped over there. But I did eventually go back to Repton. when Tony Burns started training, because Tony was a lovely guy. I mean, real nice guy. I actually worked for his family when I was young, in East London, in down by the lane in Brick Lane. So I become very friendly with him, and we were great friends, you know. So I went back to Repton, but Repton's just a great club. It it wins everything, and they're all nice boys. Everyone's nice boys. So I enjoyed my amateur career very much. Brilliant.
Absolutely. When did the switch flick for you? Because I believe before you started boxing, you want to be a singer. I hear you're not bad either.
Yeah, I wanted to be a singer. I write the occasional song, and I do a lot of cabaret when I can. But I wanted to be a singer. I won Pontin's Holiday Camp in 1962, the same year I started boxing, and again I like singing, but boxing took over. What it was, my dad. You laugh at this. My dad wanted me to box because what it was, I was always getting in trouble, but because I was small, I wouldn't start on anyone. But if they hit me, I'd hit them back. So that's what I did, and that's how my dad got me to fight. But my mum wanted me to be a singer, but my dad obviously wanted me to box. And what happened once when I'd won the talent competition, my mum said, "Oh, he's gonna sing now." So my dad said, "Are you joking? Can't have him singing where we come from, Bethnal Green. You can't do that." He said, "No, he's going to be a boxer." And obviously, that was my number one then. But singing's always been my passion, always, and it always will be now anyway. So I love it.
I mean, the boxing didn't serve you too badly, did it? You mentioned about your amateur career, you enjoyed it a lot. What was it like to represent Great Britain at the Olympics in '68?
Unbelievable. I mean, I represented England when I was just on 18 years of age. Um, and then, no, 17, I think I was when I represented. No, sorry, I represented England when I was just 18. But I boxed in the Olympics. On the day we flew out to Mexico, I was 18 on the day we flew out, 22nd of September, 1968. And when we got there, because of the time change, I was 17 for 2 hours. And then I went back to 18 again in 2 hours after that. We got there 10 o'clock at night. I think it was on a Wednesday, 1968, and that was my birthday. And so I've been 18 twice in one day. Crazy. Yeah, amazing.
What was that whole experience like? I don't know if it's the same as what it is now with all the, all different Olympians from different sports all in one bit.
Uh, yeah, well, the Olympic experience then was fantastic. I mean, when you think of the fighters there were, George Foreman, I mean, who won the gold medal. I boxed a guy called Ronnie Harris, who was a lightweight champion. He won the lightweight gold medal, and I lost on a majority decision, which was, very good to do. And we became good friends after that. Actually, I didn't, although I never saw him. Every time I went to a do with George would always phone him and say, "Hey, who am I speaking to here? Look," and he'd always have a chat with me. But George, that when Chris Finnegan won the gold medal, that was just unbelievable because we never ever thought someone would win a gold medal from us because we're all so inexperienced going to Mexico. The altitude. I mean, it was 7,500 feet above sea level. And it was like, oh, you you could hardly breathe when you first got there, and it was very difficult. So when Chris Finnegan won that gold medal and done what he done was just incredible. And everyone who was in the Olympics then was so difficult because it's never been above sea level before. In any country, it's always been level. So for us, and we was out there nearly 3 weeks before to acclimatise. We had to be out there. Because and that's why if you look at boxers today, and this is no disrespect to them, but when I boxed for the world title out there, I was out there over 3 weeks because I knew when I went there in the Olympics, that's what you've got to do. Now, when fighters go over there now, and I know some of our fighters have gone over there in the past, they've not stayed there long enough. They've only had like a week there, or perhaps not even 10 days. And you've got to be there at least, I say 3 weeks before. I was there maybe 3 to 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks maybe. But you've got to be there to acclimatise. You've got to get that air in your lungs. You've got to And what we did in the Olympics was brilliant because we were at 7,500 feet above sea level, but we would go up more. We would go up to 10, 12,000 and train up the top. And that way you're getting more air coming into your lungs when you drop down. And so that's what we did. And that's what I did when I boxed there 7 years later. And, what they don't realise, it's all right thinking, oh, well, I'll have a week out there. You owe it to yourself because you're fighting for the greatest honour that you could ever fight for, being a world champion. And in our case, then it was undisputed. Now you've got different category, the way it's done today, but it was undisputed. So I'm thinking, oh, I want to win that. I want to go out there and win that. And so that's what I did. But yeah, I mean, I had a great career, what I did and everything. So Mexico will always be a part of me. I'll never, ever, well, hopefully I'll never forget. But it was a great, great experience to box out there. But as an amateur, I mean, we had the most fantastic time out there. It was absolutely brilliant. And to see, the records broken out there, to see all those things that were going on, it was just incredible. So Mexico is always in my heart because not only representing my country in the Olympics, but also winning a world title. And I'm still the only British boxer, or British boxer, to win in Mexico. No one's ever done that in history of boxing. So, to win that and to be the only one. And did you know this year, 50 years, on the 6th of December, is when I won the world title, 50 years. I just can't believe how quick that's come round. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I'm going to fast forward a few years from the Olympics, and you fought on the undercard of Muhammad Ali, Joe Bugner. What was that like again? Another experience to be on the undercard of Muhammad Ali.
Well, I've got some things written down here about that because I always say this. That if I hadn't have, James, this is true. If I hadn't have won anything in my career, that would have been the greatest thing other than obviously winning titles. That would have been the number one because to not it's because of Muhammad Ali, but where it was and what it meant. It's the first time that Great Britain, the British, it was called, the British are coming. It's the first time Britain's ever fought the Americans professionally. And we won 2-1. John Conti won, I won. And of course, Joe Bugner, who was representing Great Britain, lost against Muhammad Ali. And so at that time, it was unbelievable. But I'll tell you what happened. I got a phone call December of 1972. Now, the fight's on the February the 14th, Valentine's Day, 73. So I got a phone call from Mickey Duff. You remember Mickey Duff? And at the time, obviously very friendly with him and always on the bills. So that was good. And he was with my manager at the time, Terry Lawless. And he phoned me up. John H. Always called me John H. I went, hello, Mickey. I knew it was Mickey Duff because it was a reverse charge call. Typical of him. And anyway, I said, yeah, right, John H., I've got something for you. I went, well, what's that? He said, you are boxing on the Muhammad Ali Joe Bugner bill. He said, in Las Vegas, February the 14th, he said, next year. This was about 2 months ago. And I went, you're joking. No, seriously, you're on that bill. Wow. I mean, wow. And then I thought, how much? And he went, 1,200. I said, bloody hell, is that all I've got to give you? I mean, I'd have fought on there for nothing, you know what I mean? Wouldn't have bothered me. Um, but it was amazing. And John Conti was on the same bill, fighting Terry Daniels. I fought Danny McAloon. And of course, Joe Bugler fighting Muhammad Ali. And, you know, when you sort of realise what bill you're going on, and we all know at that time, Muhammad Ali was the greatest thing ever since sliced bread, if you know what I mean. I mean, everyone loved him. He was the purposeful man. He could do what he wanted. He was the number one boxer. And so to even be associated with Ali at that time was, oh, wow. So to go over to the convention center in Las Vegas was probably, I always say this, if I hadn't won nothing, that would have been the bill to be on. That would definitely be the bill. And the bill, you know, it was called The British Are Coming. That was the name of the bill. And like I said, it was Ali Bugner, Conti Daniels, Stracey McAloon. And, but the things that were going on were just incredible. I mean, the people who were around, you know, all the actors, the people who were appearing in Las Vegas was incredible. But just tell you one quick story. When I was training in the gym, and it was at the convention center. Sorry, it was at the, where was I training? Let me just have a quick look. I was training at the convention center. And what happened was we were in the gym and Muhammad Ali was leaning over the ropes and he was sort of goading Joe, if you like, you know, I'm going to whoop you. I'm going to whoop you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to do, you know, all that. So everyone's sort of laughing at him. But when you get in the ring and you move around, you're in the same ring as Muhammad Ali. So I was just moving around and Muhammad was laying over the ropes, pointing like this. So I tapped him here just to for him to turn around and you shake hands when you do that because you're in the same ring. But he never bothered. He just stayed where he was, looked over the ropes, and then started again. So I thought I'd go over again. So I've done it again. And of course he didn't turn around at all. So the next thing, I'm waiting and I'm waiting by him. And what he did, he came off the ropes and he turned and he stood right on my foot, literally on my foot. Now you imagine 16 stone on your foot. Well, I mean, I went, like that. And then he's grabbed me like this. He's holding me round the top here, both hands, because I'm ready to fall down. But he didn't know that I was okay. But as soon as he grabbed me, I thought, I'm going to have some of this. So I looked over. Terry Lawless was laughing at me. And he's going, you okay, John? You okay? And I'm going, no, no, like that. And he kept holding me and holding me as if I was going to fall down. And the next thing he's going, you okay? No, no, no. Anyway, after about, I'd say a half a minute or so, I then start going, yeah, yeah, okay. So he let go. And he said, you okay now? Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mohammed. I'm fine, like that. And it was just at that time, something I did. I don't know why I did it. Obviously, I wanted to meet him, but do you know what? That became our thing for years because every time I saw him, whenever I met him, and the last time I saw him, not long before he passed in London, sorry, in England, in Stoke on Trent, at the football ground, actually, Stoke football ground. He came, we were talking, and he said to me, how's your foot? How's your foot, John? You know, he used to say that to me at all the shows, how's your foot? So we had that in common, you know, it was brilliant. But yeah, I mean, anyone to box on a Muhammad Ali bill, especially in Vegas, I mean, that was, you know, I always say if I hadn't won anything, that would have been great. But let me tell you, he was sparring with Larry Holmes. Now, Larry Holmes had just turned pro. He'd only had one title, one pro fight. That was 1973. He'd had one pro fight. Can you imagine? You know, I'm a year younger than him, and I was already a pro 4 years. So he never turned pro till he was 23. And the people who were there was unbelievable. I'm going to just read them out who was there. This was sitting ringside when we were watching the fights when he was boxing, and the people were sitting down were the Rat Pack, which was Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin. And we're all looking out thinking, wow, these guys, you didn't even see them on telly hardly, but to see them there at boxing was like amazing. You also had Barbara Streisand. She was there. Sophia Loren. She was there. Richard Burton. Elizabeth Taylor sitting there ringside. Gregory Peck. Paul Anka. Ryan O'Neill. I mean, you know, these guys were there. Also sitting down, well, watching the fights from inside was Elvis Presley. Now, I'm not joking when I say that. We actually shared Elvis Presley's dressing room. So, it was just amazing to be doing that. And he came up to me, it's 1-1 it was. John Conti had beaten Terry Daniels in a knockout. Joe had just lost, obviously, to Ali, and now the third one's coming on. John H. And they're thinking, if we don't want to lose 2-1, we want to win 2-1. And I was hitting the pads. Lawless was holding his hands up, and Elvis. This is no lie. Elvis Presley came over. Now I didn't recognise him one bit. I was 22 years of age. I wasn't an Elvis Presley fan. I know I'd heard of him, and obviously he was there to do his shows, and he was great. But when you're boxing and you're so fixed with your mind, that don't come into it. You're always on your mind is the fight. But he walked over and he said, "Good luck. I hope you do well for your fight tonight." And I went, "Oh, thanks, mate," like that. And Lawless looked. Anyway, the guy comes in and he goes, "Right, Stracey, you're on," like that. American guy. "Stracey, you're on," like that. So, oh, like that. So you get, oh. Anyway, as we're walking through, he said to me, that was who said hello. I went, "No." He said that was Elvis Presley, because Elvis Presley was there from 1968 to 77. He was there for 9 years in the convention center where we were boxing. So at the Hilton Hotel. So he walked over and I couldn't believe it. So I'm walking through and he said that was Elvis Presley, and I'm going, "Oh, shut up," like that, make it. But it was Elvis, and we just couldn't believe it. Anyway, we all had invites to go to see the show the next night, and obviously we saw him, and it was just amazing to see him. I've never seen nothing like it. He was. I mean, Elvis of all people, you never expect to see Elvis Presley anywhere really, but at that time, he was there until he sadly passed away. But what an evening we had the next day! It was fantastic, and I've never seen nothing like it, because Elvis, as you know, it was so different. So the women were running up to him, hitting their husbands, and people there with like, "Get away! I'm going to see Elvis." And he was the main man then. But also, let me tell you, he was sitting ringside. Now, this is absolutely true. Sitting ringside, you had George Foreman, you had Joe Frazier, you had Jake LaMotta, you had Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, and also Max Schmeling, who actually helped him out many, many years later. And possibly the greatest boxer of all time was sitting there, Sugar Ray Robinson. Now, Ray, when I boxed that evening, out of his seat and stopped me and said to me, "I wish you good luck." He said, you can go all the way." I hadn't even fought for the British title yet. Well, I did, but I got disqualified, and then I won it just after that. And I couldn't believe it. He came up to me and said, "You can go all the way." And I said, "My manager, what?" And he said, "See, if Robin can say that, that's what you can do." I mean, I was just so blessed, to be there. I mean, it was. I'd always say if I never won anything, that would have to be the greatest time of my life in boxing. You're never going to see them people again. You know what I mean? You imagine them actors and singers and you know people, Sophie Loren. I mean, Max Schmeling, who, by the way, helped Joe Lewis very, very much. As I said, he was great. So yeah, I had a fantastic time there. We won 2-1. First time ever that Britain has ever boxed. And the bill's called The British Are Coming. And I have the cup, I have the trophy at home here that we won that night. I'm the only one who received it because I won the last fight and I've got it upstairs. It's a silver cup. It's quite big, and it's fantastic. But as I say, to box for Great Britain, the British are coming. I mean, how many people can say they fought again on that? So yeah, I've had some great times. Um, so carry on.
Well, I mean, you mentioned some amazing names there. You rub shoulders with the best of them. I want to ask you about spending some time with some of the England World Cup winners, Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst, Jimmy Greaves. What was that like?
Well, Jimmy Greaves was my idol as a kid. He was my idol. I'm a Spurs boy. And as a young lad, my cousins all lived over by Tottenham Way. Um, and I used to go over there, see him. And then we went to a match one day, played Fulham, and we won 5-1. And that was it. I just was Tottenham mad. Um, and then Jimmy Greaves came, and he was my hero and my absolute hero. And yeah, he was brilliant. But when you talk about people like Bobby Moore, I was actually now. Would you believe I was born in the same hospital as Bobby Moore? And people don't know that, and that is true because I wasn't actually born in Bethnal Green. I was born in Barking, and I didn't know until I was 17, until I got the Olympic Games, and I had to get a passport. And my dad took me to get the passport, and they asked me where I was born, and I said Bethnal Green. And then he said, "Whereabouts?" And my dad said, "No, well, actually, no, he wasn't." I said, "What do you mean I wasn't?" He said, "You wasn't born Bethnal Green." I said, "Well, where was I born at?" He went, "You was born in Upton Hospital in Barking." I went, "Well, why didn't you ever tell me?" He said, "Well, didn't know until now that this was going to happen." So I said, "Well, what? Everyone thinks I'm from Bethnal Green." He said, "Well, you are in a way." He said, "We came back when you were 14 months old." I said, "Yeah, but you could have told me I was born in Barking." He said, "Well, it don't matter." But I was born in the same hospital as Bobby. Also, Trevor Brooking. I was born in the same hospital as him. And what was that fella? He played in the world. Played for. I can't think of his name now. He played in the World Cup rugby. I'll get his name in a minute. Anyway, he was born there as well, and it was just amazing, to find that out. But what happened when I met them? I was having problems with, you get injuries when you box, and I used to go to West Ham to Rob Jenkins, who was the physio. And I met up with them all when I was like 19, 20. And we used to go out and have a good time and a laugh. So I had some really good times with the boys, and they were fantastic. In them days, they were just pure English players. Now, you wouldn't see a kid. I don't know if there's any players now. I look at Spurs and I don't see hardly any English players. They're all foreigners, as we call them. So I don't really see that now. But in them days, you were from that area. You know. So 6 or 7 or 8 of the members would all be locals. So like Trevor Brooking, like I say, Brian Deere, he would be local. So it was fantastic times I had. Bobby Moore was superb. Bobby Moore was the nicest guy you could ever meet. And he wasn't flash in any way because everyone thought he was big headed. He wasn't. He was the nicest guy ever. He was never a big drinker or come out with this load of rubbish. He was a wonderful man, absolute gentleman he was, and a real, real beautiful guy. And I went to Buckingham Palace with him in 1993 or 1992, sorry, and it was the Queen's 40th anniversary of being on the throne. And sadly, a year later, he passed. But what a lovely man he was, Bobby. And the West Ham. I mean, if I hadn't have been a Spurs boy, it would have been West Ham. But because my cousins all come from there, and I saw, the likes of Jimmy Greaves and people like that, I just went Tottenham. And you can never change. So I'll always be Spurs till the day I die.
Absolutely. Um, you mentioned earlier, so you won the WBC World title, you won the British title, won the European title. What did it mean to you to be a champion?
Well, I mean, you grow up to be it. It's when you win like championships as a young lad. And don't forget, I won like schoolboys at 6 stone 10. I won two junior ABA trophies, 7 stone 7, 9 stone. Then I won the National Association of Boys Clubs championships. With that was when Frankie Vaughan was the president. And when you start winning them, you suddenly realise, oh, I can win this, I can win that, I can win that. So you go up in weight and you go up in age. And then when I got to 17, I turned senior for Repton. I just joined Repton then. And you sort of look to win again, win again, win again. And I lost in the semi-final to Jim Watt in 1968. And then I got the Olympic place in 1968. And then in 1969, I won the ABA championships. So I'd won everything as an amateur, everything I went in for. I had 7 national titles, 5 wins, a semi-final and a final. So you can't get any better than that, really. And then, of course, you start looking at being a professional, and I used to dream as a kid and write out bills of me boxing for the world title when I was 14, 15. And I don't know why I never kept them. They'd probably be worth a few quid there. But I used to write them down. And it was always Madison Square Garden was the championship fight. And whoever was welterweight, and it was always welterweight, whoever was welterweight champion, I'd put. So I'd put John H. Stracey. Well, not wasn't John H. then, it was Johnny Stracey. It became John H. in 1972. Because, do you want to hear that story? Why John H.?
Yeah, go for it.
What happened? It was always Johnny Stracey, always. But my dad, ever since I started boxing, I've got every trophy here, and they've all got John H. Stracey from 62, 63, 64, going right the way through to 69. And then, my middle name's John Henry. So my middle name's Henry. So I never even questioned me dad. He always put John H. And then 1972, I met Reg Guttridge. And Reg Guttridge said to me, I want to do an article on you because I know you're fighting for the British title soon. I went, yeah. He said, have you got a card so I can phone you? I went, yeah. And I give him a card. And my dad had these cards printed, John H. Stracey. And underneath, professional pugilist. So Reg went, what the effing hell's this? And I went, what? He went, what's that? I said, that's my dad. What's John H? I said, John Henry. That's my name, John Henry. He said, well, what's the professional pugilist? I said, well, he goes back to John L. Sullivan, that days. So he went, oh, all right then. Yeah, I'll get it. Anyway, about a week later, I'm walking along the street in Bethnal Green, by Whitechapel Way area, but coming on to Bethnal Green. And a guy walks up to me and goes, all right, John H? And I went, yeah, I'm all right, yeah. I didn't take the notice. Then another one ran the corner. John H, how you doing? So I've gone, what are you calling me John H for? He said, haven't you seen the paper? I went, no. So I got the newspaper, which was the evening news, and Reg Guttridge had done an article, and on it was my card done like on the back, but in big. It was quite big, and it had John H. Stracey, professional pugilist. Obviously, the number knocked out. So everyone's coming up to me, and so then Lawler said, "Oh, that's a great name. We'll keep that." And then I was having all pictures taken with everything, John H doing all the old John L. Sullivan type stuff. And that's how I got the John H. That's how it came around. So, yeah, well, I forgot what we're talking about now. It's talking about.
Just about being a champion, obviously winning the British, European, and the world
Oh,
title.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, when I come back from America, I had the influence to, I want to, because I'd already lost to Bobby Arthur. I got disqualified, as you probably know, in the seventh round for hitting low. I never hit him low. I caught him right on the top there. Um, but obviously went down and made out, and I got the next thing I got was you fighting him again. Because they see the fight and they could see it wasn't a bet. I would never do that intentionally. And I caught him right on the button. Anyway, and then we know. I think it was 8 months later on. I knocked him out in the fourth round, and obviously won the British title. Which that's always you want to start with the British title. That to me was great. Now I never got the Lonsdale belt, although I boxed 12 times before I fought for the European. Now the reason being, and every time my manager used to phone up the Boxing Board of Control and say, "When's John going to defend? You haven't got come up with a defence yet." And they'd say, "Well, Terry, there's no one good enough at the moment." So I'm saying, well, that's not my fault. I won a Lonsdale belt. It's not my fault. And so I never got a Lonsdale belt. But what sickened me was 10 years earlier or so, might be a little bit earlier than that. No, sorry, 1966, I think it was. Howard, not Howard Winston, Walter McGowan got a Lonsdale belt given to him. He had one defence, not two, which you're supposed to have. So he got one given to him. And then 1983, Charlie Magri got a Lonsdale belt given to him because he had no one to fight. So I'm in the middle, and I didn't get that gift. I should have, and I fought 12 times during that time against foreigners, not one British, because they said there's not anyone good enough for me to fight. So really, I should have been given the belt. Not my fault. But obviously it never happened for some reason. And even now and then I say things, but they'll never do it. It will never happen because also I fought Dave Boy Green. You remember Dave Boy Green? And uh, Smith family and who he now runs the Boxing Board of Control, Robert Smith. He'll never give me a Lonsdale belt because I beat his boy. Sorry, I boxed his boy, and he don't like that. He beat me, we know, but we all know how he beat me. He didn't beat me properly, and of course Robert. Oh no, you're not getting a belt. You know what I mean? So that's the way it is. But I should have got one. I should have got one for 12 fights after winning the title and not having one defence is terrible. And it wasn't my fault. And we used to apply to say, can I, I should have one. But it never happened. But it doesn't matter. It's one of them things. But obviously the European title in Paris, that was something else. Me and Kevin Finnegan, when we won on the same night. And I don't think anyone's two boxers ever won on the same night, two championships, And that was in the tennis stadium, the Roland Garros tennis stadium in Paris. And to win there was fantastic. He won the middleweight and against Jean-Claude Boutier, and I beat Roger Menetre, who in the eighth round. So for two lads to go to Paris and fight for the championship, the European titles, was just incredible at that time. And we had some great people come over, see the fights. A lot of fighters, a lot of people from England, and it was a great evening. So to be undefeated British and European champion at the time was amazing. So you're just now waiting for the world title fight, hopefully that comes along. And I was rated, I think, number one to fight Napolis. And funny enough, I'd sparred Napolis 3 years earlier and I fought him. Did you know that? You probably never knew that.
No, I didn't.
No, but that's another. Yeah, that's another thing that people don't know. My stablemate was a guy called Ralph Charles, who was British champion, and I don't think he won. He might have been European champion, I think he might have been British and European, but was certainly British at the time. And I, what happened was they said to me, Ralph's fighting Jose Napoles in London, 1972. It was. I think it was about April or May, and they want you to go and spar Napoles for Ralph. So I said, yeah, all right then. And I was 22 at the time, so I went along to the gym in St Pancras, and obviously he was there, Napoles, to fight, and Terry Lawler said to me, go in there, do a few rounds of him, see how you feel. Because I'm sort of like the next contender coming up, although I hadn't won the British or European, I was sort of making my own way steadily. And I sparred him for 4 rounds and it was great. And funny enough, in the gym um, was Ken Buchanan. He was fighting as well on the same bill. When I sparred Ken, then I sparred Ralph, and Napoli. I sparred Napoles, and he said to me, "Right, the fourth round, just go in there and throw your jab." So I said, "What?" He said, "Just throw your jab. Don't hit him with anything else, as if you just got one arm jab." So I went, "Okay." So I did that, and it was good. Came out of the ring when we were driving home. I said, "Why did you want me just to throw the left hand?" He said, "Because you're left-handed." He said, and I saw the way you hit him with your left hand. He said, I think if you ever do box him, your left hand's going to be the one that's going to beat him because you was catching him quite good with your left hand. So I went, oh, all right. And I didn't think no more of it. And then I said to me, Dad, I think he's right there because I was catching him good. And I think if you do see the fight later on with me, the left hand is the one that wins the fight because I was, from about the third round onwards, Ed was going back every time with me hitting him. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And being left-handed is my thing. So that's why it helped tremendously. So good times, very good times.
Absolutely. And I think it's quite fitting as well. See, WBC, the green and gold belt goes back to your Repton days of green and gold vest as well. Links in quite nicely there. Just finally from me, John, obviously that was it's like 50 years ago almost now. Looking back
Oh,
now, how proud are you of your career and what you've achieved?
well, I mean, I'm proud of everything. I recently got an MBE 2 years ago, or it might have been 3 years ago, but anyway, it was around that time. 2 years ago, yeah, MBE. I went to the Queen's funeral. I met the Queen on several occasions. I've been to Buckingham Palace quite a few times. I've had a tremendous career. I mean, you know, I've done everything I ever won. I won everything I ever went in for, amateur and professional. So there's nothing that I didn't win, and there's nothing that I haven't done. And 51 fights, lost five, drew one, 145, 37 knockouts, 82.22% knockout is one of the best. And I'm not bragging, but that's one of the best in welterweight division of all time. If you look, I don't think there's more than two, maybe three, might be a bit more than me. So, to have that as well is great. And I just come back from the Boxing Hall of Fame, by the way, in America. And we had a great time. I saw Manny Pacquiao get inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame there, the World Boxing Hall of Fame. And what a lovely guy he is, Manny. I've known him for many years because in 2007 we went to Philippines and I met him and we had a belt each. We got given a belt each, and we had pictures taken. So he remembered that, and then we got talking and had some nice pictures taken. And what a lovely man he is. So boxing's it's great. You know what's great about boxers? When you meet boxers, we're all soft as anything. I mean, Manny Pacquiao, you couldn't get anyone softer. All this. But obviously, when the bell goes, it's a different matter. But that's what I love about boxing. It's there's no other sport that is anywhere near boxing because it's the most friendliest sport when the bell's not rung. It's the most friendliest sport. When the bell's rung and you go out and do your business, that's it. As soon as that bell goes, you're back to how you were, as you are. No trouble, no doing silly things. Boxing's always been for me the greatest leveler there's ever been. And what's great about boxing is when you know what you can do, you don't do it. You know, many times I get picked on stupidly. You know, when I say picked on, you might get someone looking at you looking at, and yeah, all right, mate, yeah, and you walk away. You know what I mean? That's what's great about boxing. That's why you don't see very many boxers in trouble because there's such a big level of what you can take. And a lot of people who haven't got that, who can't fight that much, will go at you because they don't know any different. But when you're boxers and you know what you can do, you just move away. You go, all right, pal, thanks a lot. And you walk away, you walk out of it. And that's the greatest thing about boxing. It really does learn you to, beware and don't do anything silly. And when you're in the ring, that's when you let it out. That's when you let it go. So that's the great thing about boxing. And boxing is the nicest. I mean, when I was at the Hall of Fame this year, meeting all the ex-fighters, I see year on year. Mickey Ward, what a lovely fella he is, Mickey Ward. Vinny Paz, who got inducted this year. As I said, Pacquiao, Michael Nunn, who got inducted. And Joe Cortez, the referee. What great people. So, so nice. And it's amazing. Boxing is. I always say boxing owes me nothing, but I owe everything to boxing because it's just such a great sport, and I love it.
Yeah, and do you know what? I can see that as well. I can see that passion and love you got for it as well. John, honestly,
Yeah.
real pleasure and privilege to speak to you today. Thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure to speak to you, James. God bless.
But man, thank you, John.
Keep punching. Keep punching.